Hey guys, welcome back to another video with Old Florida. My name is Mike. Today we're going to be tying a little Bendback Baitfish fly. First thing we're going to do is start with our hook in the vise, and we're going to take our mono thread, start it right at that bend of the hook. As you can see, I inserted this hook upside down, so hook point up. This is how the fly is going to ride. I'm going to lay a really tight thread base of this mono thread pretty far down the shank of the hook. I'm going to take that quite far down, almost to where it starts bending in the gap, and then you can come in there and break that off. Next thing I got is lead wire in .025, and then I'm going to make some really tight touching wraps all the way back up to where it flattens back out. This really helps in killing the fly, making sure it rides the way that you want it to ride, which is exactly in this orientation that's in the vise right now. Keep wrapping that pretty far down. If you just take your lead wire and kind of wiggle it a little bit back and forth while pulling tension, it should break clean. And then with that mono thread, we're going to take a couple nice and loose wraps through that wire. When you get to the end, I like to put a little bit of a cone head kind of ramp right in front of it, and then take some nice big open wraps back over that wire. It's okay if it kind of separates just a little bit, it's not a big deal at all. And then wrap back up it. All we're doing is just securing this wire so it doesn't unwrap, and we use our mono thread to fall in the slits to try to secure it. It's okay if you take a bunch of wraps, it's not a big deal at all. All we're doing is making sure it's nice and secure. Alright, once we got that, we're going to come in with our sparkle braid, take a little bit off, and trim it. What I like to do is come from behind and tie it right down at the end and capture it. Make sure it's nice and tight. If you do happen to lift the wire a little bit, just get that piece that you lifted, if you didn't fully capture it, and just break it off. It does happen sometimes. Could be a little annoying, but most of the time it's okay. And we're going to take our thread, move it forward all the way to right behind where we stopped that wire, and now we're going to take the sparkle braid, make nice touching wraps, making sure we get full coverage of that wire. And go all the way up to right behind the wire. Stop right behind our thread, lift our thread up to capture it, do 2 or 3 nice tight wraps on top of it, and then 2 or 3 nice wraps in front of it. And then you could go ahead and trim this sparkle braid off. So that's going to be the keel of the fly. It's going to help keel that fly, give it a little bit more weight, make it track better, track a little bit straighter. As far as next step goes, take our SF blend. You can mix and match colors. This one is kind of a popular one for the beach. Basically a light little greenback and white belly. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to pull out a healthy amount straight from the pack. If you grip everything together and pinch it really tight, you get a nice little tight clump. It's going to be pretty thick. Hard to explain how much it is. Probably a quarter of a pencil if you pulled tight. We're just going to lay that right over. This is a super simple tie for the most part, pretty straightforward. We're just going to lay that right over the top of it. If you take this mono thread, if you spin the bobbin clockwise, it's going to want to kick back to your fingers, and then when you loosen the tension, you can do a nice tight pinch wrap right where you want it. So you lay that right on top of the shank of the hook with your pointer finger, hold that side tight so we're on top of the shank of the hook. Let that thread want to catch back to your fingers when you twist the bobbin. Then we can put some wraps a little bit further out in front. Kind of a little tricky. Kind of just got to position the material, pulling this SF blend forward, making sure we stay on top of the shank of the hook. And I like to put my wraps pretty far to the eye. I leave a little bit of a gap. And then we're just going to bend that back. Put our pointer finger right there and hold everything in place. And we're just going to start making some wraps right on top. Making sure we're nice and straight on both sides. You can see it's right on the top of the shank of the hook right there. That's what we're looking for. And wrap back right to that lead. So this is going to be the first layer of the underbelly. And then I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to actually fall off right behind the eye of the hook. Then we come in here with our angel hair. Same thing, we're going to take a nice healthy pinch. I'm actually just going to take it out of the pack. Take a nice healthy clump right from the side. Slide it on out. This is quite a bit of material. The more you use, the more defined lateral line that you have, which I actually really like. I kind of love this material in this fly. Pinch right in the middle. Bend it right over the shank of the hook. Pull down to right on top of where you left that SF blend. We're just going to tie it straight down. Same thing over again. You can see that is a lot of material, but as you kind of feather it and pull through your hands, it kind of slims it out, kind of gives it a nice taper. We are going to trim this fly at the end, so it's going to look a little bit different. And once we got that there, you could fall off the front again. Make sure we got that material right where we want it. Looking good so far. Take our top color, and we're literally just going to repeat the same step. I do like to grab a really healthy clump on this front part. So I think I'm actually going to go a little bit more. You only have to do 2 tie-ins. You can save some material and pre-prep it, but to me, I find this fly, it's just much easier to do it in 2 steps and call it a day. Gonna just lay that right over the top of the length of what we want. Put our finger there, capture it, and we're just going to stack this. It's kind of similar tie to an eat me fly, where you're building up a big, large head profile. Lift that material and just kind of squeeze that back just for right now. You'll see why in a sec. Alright, so once we got our wraps, we're going to wrap all the way back up to the front of the fly. Not all the way to the back, but where we fall, right before we fall off on that head, if you could see that. I'm actually going to whip finish the fly right here, going around the material completely to tie off this fly. And I will tell you why in one sec, but after we have that whip finish, this is kind of the trickiest part. Learning to whip finish with your fingers so you could go around that material is pretty important. Without that, it's going to be really hard with a tool. And you could go ahead and trim your thread out. So now we're actually done with the tying portion of the fly. I'm going to come in here with my Loctite gel and my fish skull mask. This is a number 5 for a 1-0. We don't want to tie this piece down. If you tie this piece down, it's going to look too skinny and too narrow for the fly. So we actually want to, when we put this on, we're going to pull this material up a little bit. And as you can see, it's going to fill the head. You're going to have that puffy filled head that we're looking for. So right now all I'm going to do is just lay it back, kind of make it look how I want it to. Space it through the hook point. And now we can come in here with our Loctite. Just going to flip that over. Put a nice, seriously healthy amount. You really can't put too much. Just be generous with it. This is the only thing holding your head on, so you definitely don't want it to come off. What I like to do is pull that down at first just a little bit. I'll actually come in here and put a little more Loctite gel right on the top and right on the bottom. Once we got that, there's 2 different sides to the head. You can kind of see one's a little bit deeper and one's a little bit shallower. I like to put the shallower one on the top. So when you pull that and push the head on, this material is going to kind of fluff right out through the head. Push that nice and tight on for a couple seconds. It is so much easier than using epoxy. This is by far the easiest and fastest way to do it. You totally negate the whole UV light, whole drying process. It's just a clean, simple little head and you get a really good profile. Obviously we are going to trim this fly, but for right now I'm going to come in here with my stick-on eyes. I'm actually not quite sure what size I grabbed, but these fit perfectly inside the number 5. I totally forgot the size, but just put a dot in there. Stick them on nice and easy. They stick really well just because it's plastic on plastic, so you don't have to go too crazy. There's a big kind of shelf in the eye to help aid the eye so don't get knocked off or hit off. So you don't have to go too crazy, like I said. I should just come right in here with another hook. Just tap that down just a little bit. Perfect. Make sure we fill that spot completely. Exactly what we want. You can see that bait fish is definitely taking shape already. That's just going to sit in the water right like that. And we come in here with our scissors. The way I like to trim this fly, I'll take my scissors pretty far at the head and I'll start doing small little chops as I drag the scissors backwards, tapering this fly. I start pretty generously as far as taking material off on both sides, and then I'm going to come back in and I'm going to do that again. I start right at the bend of the hook, right at that bottom bend of the hook, and I'll start tapering from there. As I work back, my scissors are getting smaller and smaller. I like the overall profile to be kind of small. I don't like it to be a huge fly, but I definitely like it to have some sort of bulk and some sort of presence in the water. I did get a little bit of Loctite on that eye, which if you actually come in here with hardest hole or something along those lines, or even an alcohol swab, it'll clean up that eye and it won't have that fuzzy white look. So that's another little tip. For video purposes, I just threw a little bit more over the top of it. Hopefully that'll make it look a little cleaner in the end for you guys. Come in here with the scissors, make sure we trim that out nice and tight. I like to trim mine more from the belly and keep a little bit more material on top. Sometimes I do come in here and trim a little bit from right by the inside of the shank of the hook, or inside the gap of the hook I should say, just so it doesn't foul at all. If you leave those longer ones right at the base, sometimes it could kind of wrap around itself, which I don't love, but that little quick step really negates that. And this is just an awesome little bendback baitfish, really perfect for the beach or any clear water situation. Tarpon, snook, jack, ladyfish, intercoastal fishing. I mean, pretty much throw it anywhere. Everything eats a baitfish, I always say it. This is just a great, easy, quick pattern, especially if you're not used to tying with epoxy or you don't want to tie with epoxy. It's super weedless as well, so dragging it through sargassum on the beach, really, really good option. Give it a tie, change the colors up. Tan and white is a really, really good croaker pattern. So early season, when the big snook are in, tan and white, definitely a go-to. Thank you guys for watching. As always, we offer free shipping anywhere in the US with no minimum. And we hope to see you guys out on the water.